that we had for the whole series.
And it was
that
really that blending I was mentioning earlier in the kind of the living our lives more almost on screen while you're in the intensity of shooting than off. And the only other time that it happened was back during the first season when Emmett had gone off to see the light, to become straight, and and I had gone at that point in time. I mean, that was like the 14th episode, and we'd been shooting since July, so that was, it was a long period of time where I'd always had Peter there, and all of a sudden I was doing weeks where I wasn't working with Peter, and when we finally got to the point where where Michael and Ted kind of released Emmett, it was devastating, because it all kind of bleeds into it in that way. So the drug stuff, I think, really helped with that. But I
missed you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was
really
hard when the character went to rehab. I didn't see everybody for the start of the fourth season. It was like at least a month before I had a scene with him.
My single favorite shot in Queer as Folk, one shot,
the Kelly Macon
is
wearing
Kelly
that
Macon
camera.
dress. Is actually. It's the green hallway. It's,
into the rehab.
As Ted is walking into rehab, it starts off soft focus, and he walks all the way slowly down the long hallway, and finally comes into focus at the end of the hall. I think it's one of the most exquisite moments of filmmaking.
The Chemical Brothers song?
No,
it's at the end of the third season
But
when he first checks himself into.
Why is
rehab.
it your favorite scene? What emotion does that evoke when you see that?
Oh, well, I just think it captures so beautifully that moment of
Loneliness
recognition and that, he goes in the next thing and says, my name's Ted Schmidt and I need some help. And it's, if I drop into that, I'll cry.
My name is Ted Schmidt. And I need some help.
It was also a hugely important storyline, at least for me, and I think for a lot of the viewers, from the standpoint that the drug usage on the show was something that the show became labeled with very quickly. And it's really true to portray the gay community's tendency to medicate themselves. There's a lot of
self-medicate.
A lot of self-medicating. And we watched Brian do it from day one until the very end of the season.
Right.
And so in some sense, it was funny how, even though it was just really one character who was so extensively self-medicating himself all the way through, that was such a huge identification that, a lot of people overlooked the existence of so many other relationships.
Right.
And I think this storyline was incredibly vital, from the standpoint that we watched that other journey.
And it's where Dan and Ron were so smart in making it the guy who you'd least expect to have a problem, which is more often the case.
Right.
Well, he's also the person that gets the least attention
as often.
They don't get as much attention.
Can I
right
bring
away.
the executive producers in right now?
What?
Can we bring them
Ron
in?
and Dan are here?
Shall we bring them in?
Yes. There's executive producers here?
It wouldn't be a reunion without getting the brains behind the operation.
I'd love to see those guys.
You look great. Great to see you.
I love it that you pretend that you better go watch your
You look great.
I like your shirt.
They're going to bring a chair right over here.
And, hello. And by the way, it is Ron Cowan and Daniel Lipman.
And you know what? I was so excited because I got sidetracked.
But I have to tell you, Bug, I'm so thrilled that you're doing it. I'm so thrilled that you're doing it.
Don't talk to him. That's the caliber of the writing.
Did you want something to eat?
Did you bring dessert?
Yeah. Did we bring dessert?
Bring dessert? They don't even know they're picking up the check yet.
This is where they whip out the script. Well, thank you for including us. That's very, very nice.
Thank you for including us.
Absolutely. Here's the first question I've got to have. Now, you two have been in a relationship for how long?
35 years.
35 years. 35 years. And where did you meet?
Older than some of the people here.
We're getting the story of where they met, the true story.
Actually,
Not anymore.
Despite
He's very soft-spoken. Where did you meet?
Nursery school.
Oh, of course. 35 years.
Look at that bad bug.
You were picking up a friend's kid?
We met in daycare.
You met in daycare. All right. Where did you meet?
Seriously, we met at the O'Neill Playwrights Conference.
Yeah.
We're both playwrights. We're both in the theater.
Right.
And before we went into film and TV, and we both had plays done there. It's a wonderful conference in Waterford, Connecticut, and that's where we met. 1971.
1971.
To write together.
Yes, sir. Because you come up with the storylines, you put the words in their mouths, basically, right?
We write the song.
All right. So if you're in
very old
By the way, there's no basically to it. They write it,
they
we say it. There
Yeah,
was no-
Sharon basically said they wouldn't change a word without asking permission.
Well, there is a reason. There is a reason why, if I could say, because and we
They
also
are
did
both
this.
You
psychotic
didn't want to pay
tyrants.
them
I
writers'
didn't
guild
say it like it was
salaries.
a bad
No,
thing.
I know. We did another series called Sisters. We had the exact same policy. What we did was because we come from the theater, we made sure that we had a table read, no matter what. Everyone had their input. The scripts were. We very rarely had a script that people got the night before. It was usually a week or maybe 3 or 4 days before. People had their input. But by the time we got to the set, it was very important that everyone concentrate on their characters and not say, well, I don't like this speech and I don't like this word.
We
Those
also-
things happen, of course, sometimes.
Right.
There also isn't time to say, okay, let's take a break and rewrite the script.
Right.
But no, we did the table readings. Every single one of the wonderful people at this table we'd get together, we'd talk about scenes, we'd change lines, or we wouldn't, or we'd come to a compromise. But, I think everybody here...
Yeah, it implies that there was a sort of a they weren't. Yes, it was not a regime kind of thing. It wasn't. We certainly had an opportunity to say to
There
them
was
like,
some dialogue.
I don't get this here. I'm having a hard time getting this out of my mouth.
We would say
And
we would say our
invaluable,
piece, they would ignore us, and then go
and
back
Dan
to work.
also... And someone here earlier on was talking about being the caretaker of your character, which is, I think, something Dan said, like on day one. You are the caretakers of your character. We have a lot of characters in our heads. You have your character in your head, so we're counting on you. If something doesn't sound right, if it sounds out of character, if it isn't making sense, if you say, I don't know how I got from point A to point D, there's something missing in here, we have to talk about that. And we did, and I think everyone at this table took the opportunity constantly from the first day to the very last.
So it's very important, too, when you do a series, is to have consistency in the characters and the dialogue. I think people, especially when you see, like, you have this complete series, and you see not just one episode per week, you see 4 or 5 at a time, hopefully you'll see that the characters don't change. And there are series where people say, and I'm sure actors here would say, well, wait a minute, I talked this way last week. Why is my character talking this way? So it was very important to make it consistent.
But they change...
Absolutely.
Consistently, right. All right, so and I know a lot of writers, I'm sure we all know a lot of writers living in Hollywood.
Right.
A lot of the storylines come from experience. So you two are monogamous, yet when, you know
That
where
was
I'm
not
going
the thought.
with
The
this.
thought always with this series was, and we said it from day one, it was a celebration of gay life, non-judgmental. We always allowed the character. Every time you do a series, the networks always want to know, where's the character going in the second year, the third year, the fourth year? What's that? We've never worked that way. We always sort of took the characters, each episode as it went along, and let them lead us. And it just seemed, because in the story with Michael and Ben, what happened was there was this, and we had read an article about this, about 2 writers who were very unsuccessful, and all of a sudden, and this was a straight couple actually in the paper, one of the guy in the relationship wrote this novel, became a huge success. And it caused this incredible rift, this jealousy in their relationship. And of course, Ben was the character who was the professor, had written the books, he was writing the books, and Michael was into comic books, whatever. He became the success. And so it came out of, it wasn't just a question of, should we cheat or be monogamous or promiscuous. It came out of this emotional need.
For worth.
Exact for worth, and that's what was happening with the Ben character,
Because
and it might have happened to the Michael character. In fact, at one point, it did happen with the Michael character when he was involved with David in the first season.
Am I worth it?
That's right. Remember, you were
because he couldn't understand
Why he didn't want to move in with him right away.
Well, why even earlier than that? Why David didn't want to sleep with him the first night they went out? He thought there was something wrong with him. He was using that as his,
Right. Well, that brings up a really important question, actually, for me. As the viewer and not part of the family on the show, when you have an actor who isn't maybe as comfortable, I don't know how else to word that, but you all seem to know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I want to know,
What was it, Antichrist?
how did you deal with that, and how did you deal with that? Because your scenes were sort of...
right.
That's a great question,
And
actually.
at home, it sort of showed. Maybe I'm more critical than most because I work in this business, but I was sort of like, I don't think he understood what the role was.